Hello everybody, my name is Deja and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going over all of my favorite thriller books. I really wanted to make this video because I've actually done two other installments in this kind of series. I did my favorite horror books and my favorite romance books. And the genres that I do read the most are thriller, romance, and horror. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do after this. I know I want to do fantasy and sci-fi, but then of other genres, I feel like I haven't read as much. So let me know what you guys think. I feel like in these videos, I normally have quite a few, and the other ones might be like 5 to 10. Like today, I think we have 25. So let me know if you guys would still like to see those other videos, even if they only have like 5 to 10 books. But the reason I really wanted to make this video is honestly, I would say since last year, like 2024, I have not really been reading that many good thrillers. The majority of these thrillers on this list I read in 2023 or before. I think I have a couple, maybe like 2 to 3 on here that I've read either last year or this year, but not many. Like 3 out of 25 is honestly insane because there just really hasn't been that many good thrillers. And a lot of people I know who read thrillers have had a very similar sentiment as me, is that they aren't as good as they used to be. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make this video to give all the girlies who love a thriller a good recommendation here. There's 25 books here. The likelihood that you've read all 25 of these is probably slim unless you're a really big thriller girly, then you probably have. But I really wanted to talk about my favorite thrillers. I'm not necessarily recommending them to you because I don't think all these are going to be for everybody, but these are really, really good thrillers that I absolutely loved and adored, and I wanted to talk about them to kind of give y'all some recommendations. I'm not recommending them, but I'm kind of recommending them at the same time. And I would say, honestly, there are three main things that a thriller needs to have for me to love it. They only need to have one of the three, but if they have more than one, that's really great. So one, they have to be really twisty, turny. And a lot of thrillers that I've been reading lately claim to have twists and turns, but either the twists are not good, there's not that many of them, or they happen in the last like 10% of the book. I like a book that's really twisty throughout, or the end is like back to back to back to back to back twist where I'm just gagged, gooped, shook, shaken, stirred. Okay, that's what I like, and not many books have been delivering that lately, but some of these books absolutely do. Besides having twists and turns, I really like some dark thrillers as well. Now, all the thrillers on here are dark. I would definitely say which ones are darker than others, but I do like some really dark, kind of fucked up thrillers. I find them really interesting and entertaining, and they kind of like scratch the itch that I had. Like when I used to love watching true crime. I don't really watch true crime anymore because it's very unethical. A lot of the ways that people go about it, like even in shows, podcasts, YouTube videos, a lot of it is very unethical. And it kind of weighs on you very heavily because it is true. I feel that it weighed on my mental health a lot, versus this, I can emotionally detach from it because I'm like, oh, it's a fictional story. I feel like it kind of still kind of scratches that itch of wanting darker, disturbing stories. And then lastly, I also like if they have a social commentary element. Not all of these have social commentary elements, but some of them do, and I really, really like when a thriller has that as well. I feel like it adds a lot to the thriller. So based off those three things, you guys can probably tell that I'm not really like a domestic thriller type of girl. Like those are just not my favorite type of thrillers. I don't really know what I would say my thriller type is, besides I do like some crime thrillers, but a lot of the thrillers on here aren't crime thrillers. So I would love to know what kind of vibe of thrillers I give down below. I would love for y'all to tell me what kind of vibe you guys think I give. I don't have many, but I do have a couple YA books on here, and I'm going to start off with the one that really did it for me. This was honestly one of the first thrillers that I read, and I absolutely ate it up. I feel like this really kickstarted my thriller love, and that is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I love this one. I still have not finished the series. I've read the first two books. It's a trilogy, but then there's also a little novella. I own all of them, but I'm just scared because some people really liked the last book, some people don't. I'm nervous, but this first book and the second book, honestly, like 5 out of 5 stars for me. I absolutely love and adore them. Also, if you've seen the show, whether you liked it or not, it's completely different. I did not like the show. I did not finish it. I didn't like it at all, but I loved the book. Okay, I loved it. In this book, we're following Pip, and in her town, a couple years prior to the beginning of this book, she's like a senior in high school. Basically, it takes place in Britain, so she's not in high school. I think they call it like secondary school, but she's basically a senior in high school, like 17, 18. So when she was a little bit younger, a few years ago, there was this girl, Andy Bell, who was supposedly murdered by her boyfriend, Sal Singh, and he ended up committing suicide. So he was never convicted or even like arrested or anything like that for her murder, because he killed himself before they even got to him, but that is kind of like the story. It's like he killed her and then killed himself. Pip does not believe that is what actually happened, and she is doing like this senior capstone project. So she decides that she is going to create a podcast where she kind of goes around and investigates and figures out what actually happened to Andy and Sal. And she also teams up with Sal's younger brother, and he kind of helps her to also uncover the secrets of this town and what actually happened. This one is so good. It is a mixed media element, which I know some people are over, but when this first came out, it was one of the first like mixed media thrillers ever. And so it has like mixed media where it has like the capstone proposal project, it has the capstone logs, it has interviews with people, it has maps and stuff like that in the story to kind of aid, because she's writing this capstone project, so obviously there's going to be files and details that she adds into the project, and we get to see those throughout the story. And I absolutely just love this one. It had me really like enthralled into the story. I was super enraptured in it, and I just literally read it all in one night because I kept needing to know what was going to happen. I kept turning the pages. And this one is not super twisty turny in the way that it's like dropping bombs constantly, but it's like you're slowly piecing together information, slowly finding out information. And I really love that in books as well. It kind of feels like a Criminal Minds episode or something like that, where, you know, you're not getting necessarily like bombs throughout the entire story, but you're getting the little pieces of information. You're slowly piecing things together along with Pip. It was just so good, and I really felt like I was in Criminal Minds. I absolutely loved and adored it. It was so good, and the second book was just as good. These do kind of go a little bit darker than I would anticipate for a YA thriller, which I also really like. It's so phenomenal, and I highly recommend it. And I think if you're especially new to thrillers, you could really love this one because it is YA, so it's not as like dark and disturbing as some of these other ones. But even if you are an avid thriller reader, I think you would still really adore this one, because I do. Another one of the first thrillers that I ever read is The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson. I don't own a physical copy of this one, but this is actually one of the few books on my channel that I did a single book vlog for. I haven't really done many of those, but I did one for this one. It was one of my most popular videos on my channel. This one is a little bit more dark and a little bit more disturbing because we are following this woman, and she has gotten rescued by like the police and FBI from this sanctuary that this man had of his butterflies, which were women that he basically kidnapped, held hostage in this garden kind of place, and tattooed butterfly wings on their backs. And some women, not just emotionally, but also physically, got harmed at this location. And it was really horrible, the things that happened in this place. The main character is basically recounting her experience of how she ended up at this butterfly garden and what happened to her up until the point that she got rescued. And she's just recounting all the events and what happened to these other women as well. It's really horrible. It's really dark. It's really disturbing, but it is such a good read, and it flies by super quickly. Some of the authors on here, I do have multiple books that I put on this list from, and this next author is one of them, and that is Riley Sager. These are my two favorite from him, Home Before Dark and The Last Time I Lied. I would say these two are my only like absolute favorites from him. His other works I usually enjoy, but these ones were absolute favorites for me, and I feel like The Last Time I Lied is extremely underrated. So we'll start here. The Last Time I Lied follows Emma, and she is a younger camper at this camp called Camp Nightingale, and she was housed in this cabin with three older girls who were like older teenagers, and these girls really accept her and kind of bring her in and make her feel warm and welcome. And then one night these girls decide that they're going to go out, like the three older girls, and they leave Emma back in the cabin alone, and they go missing, to never to be found again. And this has really kind of haunted Emma. She's an artist now, present day, and she portrays a lot of her like trauma and feelings around the disappearances of these girls in her art. And then she gets contacted by the new owner of Camp Nightingale. They invite her back to the camp to host art classes. She decides that she's going to go back, she's going to host these art classes, and she begins to kind of investigate and try and figure out what happened to these girls at the camp years prior. I love a camp setting, but not many books that I've read do a camp setting very, very well. I know that I love it because I love it in horror movies. It's one of my favorite things. I love a camp setting, but not many books that I've read, horror or thriller, have a really, really good camp setting to me. And this one really did. I loved it. And some of the end twists in this one were really good. This one is a little bit slower in my opinion, but I feel like it's very similar in that it's piecing information together, which I enjoy. And then again, like the end twist really had me gagged gagged. I feel like it was super well plotted. Sometimes a really well plotted twist at the end will really get you, and that's what happened to me in this book. And I feel like we also kind of explored some mental health representation through our main character Emma and her trauma around these girls disappearing. And then we have Home Before Dark, which is my absolute favorite by him. I love this one. We're following Maggie, and she does not believe in like paranormal, occult, really anything of that nature. But when she was younger, really before she can remember, her and her family moved into this house, and it was one of those cases of like the house was haunted and it like pushed the family out. I think they only stayed there for 20 days because of the hauntings and the escalation of everything within this house. And her dad ended up writing a memoir about everything that happened in this house, and she does not believe it. She thinks that it's bullshit and that none of that really happened, and that the memoir was just kind of like, I don't know, like a cash grab for him to get money and fame. And her father ends up passing away. He still owns this house. He never sold it, and it ends up getting passed to her. So she decides that she's going to go and renovate this house so she can sell it. And while she's there, she begins to notice some strange things occurring, and maybe begins to question maybe her dad was right and that the memoir was actually true, and that everything paranormal that happened to them was actually happening to them and wasn't something that he made up. So you're kind of like in this book questioning with our main character if what happened like 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago is what actually happened, and if this house is truly haunted. This one is so fun. Again, the end twist of this one really had me gagged, and it was something that I didn't see coming. It was really well plotted again. If you guys know me, you guys know that I don't really like a haunted house in any genre. There are some books that I've liked that are haunted houses that are like 4 stars for me, but this one is one that really stands out to me, and I think a lot of people would really like this one. Whether you like paranormal books or not, I think this is one that you could definitely enjoy. We have to go with one of the most popular thrillers of all time next, and that is Verity by Colleen Hoover. I don't really like supporting Miss Colleen Hoover, but if I'm going to make a list of my favorite thrillers, I have to put her on here because this book, honestly, is truly one of my favorite thrillers. I love a good fast-paced, twisty thriller, and that's what this is. We're following struggling writer Lowen, and she gets this opportunity to ghostwrite this series that's like a super popular New York Times best-selling series by this author Verity. And the reason that she gets to ghostwrite this series is because Verity is basically like comatose, like she is on home care, so she stays at home, but she's not really conscious. She's immobile. She just stays in the bed and is kind of just like comatose. So obviously Verity can't finish the series. So they offer Lowen this opportunity to ghostwrite the series to finish it off because it is a super popular series. She obviously accepts this offer because she is really struggling and is a bit poor. This one literally has the receipt in it from when I bought this in 2021. That's insane. But Lowen ends up going to Verity's house where she's literally staying, and her husband and child are also there because she wants to go through Verity's office and go through all of like her notes and everything like that to try and figure out what Verity's plans were for the rest of the series. And then she stumbles across this manuscript that was never meant to be seen because it is written by Verity, but it is about Verity admitting some very horrible things that she did. And Lowen doesn't know if these things are true or if they aren't because it is a manuscript. So she doesn't know if it's fictional or not. And then Lowen also begins to have feelings for Verity's husband, who also is in this house. This one is super twisty, super fast paced. It is just a quick read. Again, I think that a lot of new thriller readers would really love this one. If you are an avid thriller reader, I'd be surprised if you haven't read this one. This one really had me shook, shaken, stirred, gagged, gooped, glumped. Like I was everything. Like jaw dropped on the floor, shook and shaken. That's truly what this book did to me. Next up, I have one that is really heavily focused on social commentary, and that is The Nice One by Megan Golden. I really adore this one. It follows podcast host Rachel Kroll, and she is in her 3rd season of her podcast. It is a super popular true crime podcast, and she really wants to make the 3rd season a bang. Like she wants to keep the success going. And so she goes to this town and decides to cover this rape trial that is happening, where it is basically like this teenage boy who was destined for the Olympics, is kind of the golden boy of the town, is claimed to have raped the granddaughter of the chief of police. And she's following this rape trial, but then also she begins to get notes and letters and kind of harassed by somebody saying like, hey, something happened to my sister years ago in this town. I need you to help me figure out what happened to her. So we are kind of following present day, but also in the past, of her trying to simultaneously cover this rape trial, but then also investigate in the past and figure out what happened to this woman's sister. This one has a lot of social commentary, especially on rape and rape trials, because obviously when women come forward about their experiences and what happened to them and their trauma, usually they're not believed. And when people are convicted, they don't even get the sentencing that they deserve. And this book talks a lot about that in general, and like the patriarchy and the power dynamics when it comes to these types of situations. And again, this one has an interesting element of like a podcast in it, which I really like. You guys will probably notice that I do like a podcast, kind of more mixed media element in my books in general. This one was so heartbreaking and hard to read, but it was a very, very good read. Next up, we have They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. This one is about Scarlett Clark, and she is an English professor at this university, and she's a great English professor, amazing, but she also has a little bit of a secret, and her secret is that once a year she goes and tracks down the most despicable men on this campus, whether it's students, faculty, professors, whatever, whoever. She tracks them down, one man a year, and kills them because they're despicable human beings, and she does not think that they deserve to live. But of course, obviously, people are beginning to notice the rising body count, and she kind of gets enmeshed into the investigation to try and prevent them from figuring out that it's her. At the same time, we're also following a student at this university who is a freshman, and she begins to kind of have feelings for her roommate, and she's just trying to survive her freshman year, but then also is navigating these feelings that she never thought that she would have. I really love this one. I loved seeing the two storylines come together because obviously they're going to come together at some point, and that is what really, really shook me. And I feel like this one had twists throughout, which I really enjoyed as well. But then also, I really love an unhinged woman in my thrillers and horror books, and this one definitely follows an unhinged woman for sure. And then also, I think I read this right before I went to college or right in the beginning of when I was in college, so it really kind of resonated with me at that time as well. Next up, I have Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. I've read quite a few of Jennifer Hillier's works, but this one definitely is my favorite. When she was 16 years old, Angela Wong disappeared without a trace, and she was one of the most popular girls in her school. They never suspected that her best friend Georgia Shaw would be involved in her disappearance. 14 years after Angela's disappearance, Georgia is now a high ranking executive in her company, but Angela's remains are found outside the woods around Georgia's childhood home, and the police begin to put the pieces together that Angela was actually the victim of Calvin James, who is a serial killer that was in the area at the time, and Georgia was actually in love with Calvin, and they had a romantic relationship. So she was involved in her best friend's disappearance. This one is so kind of dark as well. I think this one is definitely one of Jennifer Hillier's darker works because what happens in this is absolutely crazy, but I feel like there's also a lot of like grooming and gaslighting that is in this story. It's not like heavily commentated on, but it's definitely present within the story. So twisty, so turny, and it was definitely dark and disturbing and kept me on the edge of my seat. Next up, I have Confessions by Kanae Minato. This is another one that I don't physically own, but I absolutely love this one. I need to get a physical copy immediately because this one follows a teacher at this school. I would say that she teaches probably like middle school or early high school. And this teacher decides that she's going to retire because her young daughter, who was like 4 or 5, ended up tragically dying at this school. And she's obviously very heartbroken and just kind of wants to move on. But what she knows is that her class, some of the people in it that she teaches, her students, were involved in her daughter's death. And she is going to get her lick back. She tells them from the very beginning, on the day that she's retiring, I'm going to get my lick back on y'all. And we basically follow her throughout this book as she's getting her lick back on the people that were involved in her daughter's death. It is so good. It was so twisty. Like, it was just crazy. Like, from the very jump, it had me shook. I'm not going to lie. From the very jump, it had me shook in the beginning all the way through to the end. It had me just really gagged because I didn't think that anybody would go to these lengths for revenge, but she definitely did. She definitely went there. Next up is another author where I have 2 books, and that is Karen Slaughter. So I have Blindsided and Pretty Girls, both by this author. I think I've read like 4 books from her now, but these 2 are definitely my favorites. Pretty Girls is in my top 3 favorite thriller books of all time. I don't know what the third place would be, but I have like 2 on here that I know are definitely in my top 3, and this is one of them. I love Pretty Girls so much, and I feel like this is one of those books where I could tell y'all the synopsis of this, but it does not match what actually happens in the book. Like, the way that the story goes is completely a different direction than you would ever anticipate from hearing the synopsis, and I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm going to just read the synopsis from the back for y'all. It says, "It's been more than 20 years since Claire and Lydia last spoke. Claire is the glamorous trophy wife of Atlanta millionaire. Lydia, a single mother dating an ex-con, struggles to make ends meet, but neither has recovered from the disappearance of their sister Julia 2 decades earlier, and the shocking murder of Claire's husband brings the horror and heartbreak of the past roaring back into their lives. The vanishing of a teenage girl and the killing of a middle-aged man, almost a quarter century apart, what could connect them? As they form a wary truce, the surviving sisters unearth the secrets that destroyed their family all those years ago and find the astonishing truth where they least expect it. This one is very dark. I would say out of all the thrillers on this list, this one and the other Karen Slaughter, Blindsided, are definitely the darkest, I would say. So please look up trigger warnings for any of these books. If you have any triggers at all, I want you guys to be safe and not have anything impact your mental health negatively. But this one goes really, really dark. And it was one of the first thrillers that I read where I was like, oh shit. Like, I did not realize that thrillers could go this dark. And I absolutely was floored. The fact that Karen Slaughter really went there and showed the depraved nature of humanity really shook me. And I absolutely just ate every second of it up. Like, I think I read this in one day, and it's not a short thriller. It's like 400 pages on audio. It's like a little bit longer. I know I listened to this one on audio, and it just really had me gripped and hooked from the very beginning. And the way that it went was absolutely just insane and crazy. And it was just so good. It has twists, it has darkness, it has disturbingness, it has commentary. This one has all those three things that I mentioned at the beginning in it. That's why I love it so much. Then we have Blindsided, and this is the first book in her Grant County series. I would say besides her standalones, this is a great place to start because the Grant County series you need to read before you read Will Trent, which is one of her other really popular series. I've not read that one yet. I've only read the first two books in the series, but I really like this one. It's definitely more of like a police procedural kind of, it definitely is more of like a crime thriller, almost police procedural, because we do have a policeman character in this series, but we mostly follow Sarah, and she is the town's local pediatrician, and she's also the medical examiner because the town is so small. It's literally one person. And Sarah discovers this woman who has been brutally murdered and raped, and she also has a little symbol that's drawn on her in her body, like with a knife. And obviously she's interested in who did this because she's a medical examiner. She's investigating into the body, but then her ex-husband is also the chief of police, and we're following him as well as he's trying to investigate and figure out what happened to this woman. And more bodies are beginning to pop up, and they realize that this is not a one-off attack that happened, and this is something that is ongoing that they need to look into. This one again goes very dark, very disturbing. This entire series does. All of her books that I've read go very, very dark, and they really go there. So if you have read thrillers and you're like, these don't do enough for me, they really are not going to the place that I need them to go, I would recommend Karen Slaughter for sure. But again, look up trigger warnings because some of these books are dark, but her books are darker. Okay, they really, really go there, and there's just something about it that I love. Like, they're so gritty, and I really, really like that. Again, it's kind of reminiscent of like true crime in a way with how dark that it goes. I have another author with two books, and that is Ashley Winstead. So I have The Last Housewife, and This Book Will Bury Me. This is the most recent addition to this list. I think the only addition that I've read in the past year that's made it onto this list. But first, we're going to start off with The Last Housewife, and I love this one. Again, this one is another one that goes really, really dark and has a lot of good social commentary. While in college in New York, Shay Evans and her best friends get wrapped up in this enthralling older man's web of lies and deceit. And by their senior year, her and one other friend are the only ones to survive. Everyone else has not made it through college alive, and so they kind of just move on from this experience and what happened to them and what this older man did to them. And now Shay's kind of just living her little like housewife type of life, but then her one friend that did survive with her ended up committing suicide at their college, and she does not believe that this was suicide, so she ends up going to investigate what happened and also asks a host of a true crime podcast to come and help her figure out what happened to her friend. This one goes so dark. Again, I feel like it has so much commentary on like gaslighting and grooming and older men taking advantage of you. It goes absolutely in a completely different direction than I anticipated, but it goes so dark. I think the commentary in this one is what really set it off for me. And again, I read this one right around like going into college or just starting college, so it really hit for me at the time that I read it. This Book Will Bury Me is also amazing, and as I said, it's the most recent addition to this list. I think the only one I've read in the past year, so that says a lot about how good this book actually is. And so this one follows Jane, and she is also a college student, but she ends up dropping out of college after her father's unexpected death. She moves back in with her mother. She lives in Florida, and this woman actually gets murdered and dismembered right by her, like where she lives. So she ends up going online and like looking in some like true crime, like amateur sleuth type of forums. It's giving don't fuck with cats vibes for sure. And so she goes into these forums and basically helps people solve what happened to this woman. There are four other people who are in these forums that have like their own little group of amateur sleuths, and they solve cases together, and they all come from different walks of life, and they see her and the work that she's put in and decide to invite her into their little group, so it now becomes five, and they just end up solving crimes and stuff like that. And then eventually they come across this murder of a couple Idaho college students that were murdered, and they end up going to try and solve the case of what happened to these Idaho kids, and it changes everything for them. This one again really scratches that true crime itch for me. It is kind of based off the Idaho 4 murder case that happened a couple years ago that's currently in trial. And there's actually an author's note from the author of her talking about that she went in through a similar experience when her father passed away, of kind of going into true crime, and she took inspiration from multiple true crime cases. And I do feel like they were different enough and had enough care in class when she was talking about these cases and the murders that happened within the story, that it didn't feel icky or gross to me. I know some people aren't probably going to like that it is inspired by true crime, but I think you can really tell that it's inspiration and it's not like a retelling. I really love the grief elements in this one, and again, this one is a pretty thick thriller. It's like almost 500 pages, I think, or 450 pages, and I literally read this in mostly one day. 85% of it I read in one day because it was just that good. It had me so entranced into the story. I also really love The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson. I haven't really read any of his other work, but this one was amazing to me. And there is a sequel. I haven't read the sequel, so I can't talk about that one. But this one I really, really loved. This one follows a man in an airport, and he's flying back home to his wife, and he meets this woman, and they, end up talking about their lives, and they play this game where they reveal intimate details about each other. And he ends up talking about his wife and how he caught her in a betrayal like a week prior to this book starting. And he ends up making a joke like, haha, like I would really like to kill my wife. And I don't know why he would ever joke about that, but he's like half joking. And then the woman is like, wait, but I'll help you. And she also has someone that she wants murdered. They kind of have like that strangers on a train type vibe where it's like, I'll kill for you if you kill for me. And this one is so twisty, so turny, and I just love the setup of this one. It was really, really fun. This is one I don't remember too many details about, but I just remember the experience and how much I absolutely love this one. It was so good. Next up, I have Stillhouse Lake by Rachel Kane. This one follows Gina, and she is a very typical housewife. She has her husband and her two kids, and she just lives her life and she loves it. But then one day, someone accidentally drives into their house garage and destroys things. But then when the police show up to the scene, obviously, they discover that her husband has actually secretly been killing people and is a serial killer and has been doing it in his garage. So he obviously gets locked up and sent to jail. But Gina is basically getting tracked down and harassed by all these different people online saying that she knew about it or that she was somehow involved in it. So she takes herself and her two kids and basically has been popping around place to place trying to keep her kids from harm. But she decides that she wants to give them stability and wants to settle down. So she settles down by this place called Stillhouse Lake. And right as she's settling down, a body pops up in the lake. And also she begins to get some letters from an all too familiar person. And this one just, again, had me really shook and shaken. I loved following our main character, Gina slash Gwen. I thought she was an amazing character. That's really what stands out to me about this book, is her and her love for her children. I thought it was so strong and powerful. And I also really liked the atmosphere and setting of this one. This one is also a series I have not read on in it, but I think we follow like Gina and Gwen in the other books as she's like investigating other people's like crimes and stuff like that, which it sounds really interesting. I'm excited to continue on, but this one was so good as a standalone, and I really loved it. The Girl in 60 is also one that needs to be mentioned by A.R. Torrey. This one is so interesting and fun. Let me just read you guys the back a little bit. It says, my life is simple as long as I follow the rules. 1, don't leave the apartment. 2, never let anyone in. 3, don't kill anyone. I've obeyed these rules for 3 years, but rules are made to be broken. We follow this woman who has killed before, and she believes that she's kind of a danger to society, and so she decides that she's going to stay in her apartment. She gets like all her groceries delivered. She makes money online by like doing like basically porn slash OnlyFans online, and that's how she makes her money. And she just kind of stays away from everybody because she doesn't want to hurt anybody. She begins to discover some things online that lead her to believe that someone is in danger and low-key needs her help. So she decides to venture out of her apartment to go help this person in the ways that she can. This one is really fun and interesting because she's like a female serial killer, unhinged, but she doesn't want to be. And there's also kind of like a little bit of a sexual erotica element to this one, just with her work and stuff like that. But seeing her kind of fight this temptation but trying to help people at the same time, and she has to fight this temptation to be able to help people, was so interesting and fascinating. I really liked this one a lot. I feel like for all of these I'm saying like, oh, I really like this one, oh, I really love this one, but I don't know what else to say because these are my favorite thrillers of all time. Like, I really love all of these and they're all so good. Next up, I have Daisy Darker by Miss Alice Feeney, and Miss Alice has let me down recently because Beautiful Ugly, not teen, not good. This one I feel like is one that a lot of people will really like. It's more of like a traditional thriller, I feel, in a lot of ways, but also untraditional in other ways. And this one has a twist in it that I feel like a lot of people wouldn't think that I would like, and usually I wouldn't like it, but the way that it was done here, I absolutely loved and adored it. After years of avoiding each other, the Darker family is coming together for the grandma of this family, the matriarch of this family. It's her 80th birthday on Halloween, and she has this island, and so they all go to her island for her birthday. And when the tide comes in, they're cut off from the whole rest of the world. And then, right as the clock strikes midnight, her grandma is found dead. And this family, the Darker family, is slowly getting picked off one by one, and we're following Daisy Darker as she is trying to obviously piece together who's taking out her family. Again, this one had a twist that honestly just had me so shook that it bumped this book up so much for me. But I really also loved the atmosphere of this one. I love the atmosphere that Alice Feeney does in all of her books. That's one thing that I cannot clock her for, is her atmosphere, because it's good. Okay, the atmosphere of this one on this island, this isolated kind of locked room setting, which is not something I traditionally like, but I really liked it in this book because it was just so well done, and then that twist was so phenomenal that I had to put this one on the list. I have another author with two books, and one of these is also in my top 3 thrillers of all time, definitely my top probably 10 books of all time, and that is S.A. Cosby. I have All the Sinners Bleed and Razor Blade Tears. All the Sinners Bleed is the one that is literally my favorite. This was my favorite book of 2023, one of my favorite books of all time, top 3 thrillers of all time. So we'll start with Razor Blade Tears first. This one follows two men, Ike and Buddy Lee, and they come from different kind of backgrounds, but they're both actually ex-cons. And the thing that they do have in common is that their sons were actually husbands. So they both are actually like a bit homophobic, I'm not gonna lie. They are a bit homophobic in the beginning of the story because they did not agree with their like children's way of life, but their children actually get murdered, and Ike and Buddy Lee come together and decide that they're going to put whatever they feel aside, and one of them is black and one of them is white. So not only do they not really like their child's way of life or support it, they also have a little bit of tension between them racially, but they decide that they're going to put all that aside and they are going to go hunt down and take revenge on the people that murdered their children. And what I really love about S.A. Cosby is that even if his characters come from a completely different way of life than me, they have completely different beliefs than me, they are not really good human beings, he somehow really brings humanity to them and obviously gives them character development, makes them change over time, because I'm not saying that I care about homophobic and racist characters, but those characters did start off that way, and the way that he is able to develop them in such a way and give them so much character development and growth in such a short span of time to make me care about them and really root for them is something absolutely insane and crazy, and I just love his work so much. This one I would say would appeal to a lot of different readers. I feel like a lot of these are more traditionally like marketed towards women, but S.A. Cosby I feel like is really great for men as well, because his books read to me kind of like an action-y thriller. I'm not saying that women can't like everything and men can't like everything, but I feel like a lot of men like more like action thriller or action movie type stories, and this one definitely comes across that way. And so I think that this one is one that I would recommend to like my boyfriend or my dad as well. And then All the Sinners Bleed truly has my heart, because this one I feel like is S.A. Cosby. I read all of his books. I know his tone of writing. I know how he writes his books. But it's like if S.A. Cosby, in his writing style, wrote a Karen Slaughter-esque book. This goes super dark. It goes super disturbing. It follows a police officer, actually the sheriff. So it is very reminiscent of Karen Slaughter's work, but it is from an S.A. Cosby lens. And that's what I really love about this one. You guys can just tell I love Karen Slaughter and like this type of thriller. It's honestly my favorite. So this one follows a black sheriff. He's the first black sheriff to ever be elected in this town. And 1 year to the day of his election, a previous student goes into the high school, shoots their teacher dead, their ex-teacher dead, and then kills themselves. And so him and the other people are obviously trying to investigate and figure out why did this student do this, like what was the motivation, and they begin to uncover some really dark, horrific things that are happening in this town. It is so good, and it truly like went there. Again, I love a thriller that goes there, and this one did that. And I feel like, again, this one has so much commentary. All of his books have so much commentary, but it's also more of like a crime thriller, which I really like, and it's so dark and twisted, and I just love it. Like, I can't say enough good things about this one. I will go on and on about this book for 10 minutes, so I'm just gonna leave it there and say that you need to pick it up. Okay, you need to pick it up. Some of these books I would classify more as dramas, and we have a couple coming up, but they don't really have drama as like a genre. Like they would put these in the thriller category or mystery category in the bookstore. So I put them in this video because there was no other place to really put them. Like I feel like they're not like mysteries, but they're not thrillers, but drama isn't really a book genre. So I put them in this video. The first one that I have in this category is The Push by Ashley Audrain. Blythe is determined to be like the warm, comforting, compassionate mother that she always dreamed to be when she has her daughter. But then when she does have her daughter, she doesn't really feel connected to her. And over the course of her first few years of life, feels that something is just off about her daughter and that her daughter honestly does not like her and does things against her. And her husband does not believe her, does not believe Blythe at all. And she just kind of thinks maybe, okay, I'm delusional. But then when she has her son, she feels super connected to him, feels like that warm, comforting, compassionate mother that she wanted to be. But then something suddenly happens that changes their life in an instant, and things are chaos from there. And she's trying to dissect exactly what is happening with her daughter. It is absolutely insane. It's crazy. It is a little bit slower paced. And again, it's more of like a drama than a true thriller. But the psychological elements of this one and the commentary was just absolutely incredible. So it is one of my favorite books for sure. We have our last author that has 2 books. And again, she kind of falls into a variety of genres. She is YA and she writes literally in every genre, but I didn't really know what else to put these ones in. And so I have Allegedly and Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. I love her work so much. It's absolutely remarkable how well that she tells these stories. And even though there are for young adults, I feel like anybody can truly read them. Grown is my favorite just because of the social commentary, but Allegedly is absolutely so underrated and more people need to talk about this book. This one follows Mary B. Addison, and when she was a child, like she was probably like 8 or 9, she was convicted of killing a baby that her mom was babysitting. And she knows that she did not kill this baby, but she was convicted of it. And she went to basically like a juvenile detention center, like a little, she calls it baby prison. And so she went there, and then now she is in like a halfway house home, kind of just like, like the homes that like troubled teens go to, and she is just kind of living her life day to day, but then she ends up getting pregnant, and she kind of has to reconcile with the fact that one, that she's pregnant as a teen, and also how is she going to raise her kid when she killed the baby and they're probably not going to let her keep it. And she is kind of navigating this situation. The end twist of this on like the last page, like the epilogue, oh my god, like literally, oh my god, this one is definitely again slower. It's more of like a drama than anything else, but like it is just so good. The commentary, I feel like this is great for young adults but also for adults, and the end twist was just absolutely insane. Like it sticks in my mind. Like I think about it honestly weekly because it was just so good. Sorry if the camera angle has been changing a little bit throughout this video. For some reason my camera is overheating. Not cool, but it's okay. But I also love Grown by Miss Tiffany D. Jackson. This one I think is inspired by R. Kelly and again has a lot of commentary on like grooming and gaslighting by older men, which I guess is a common theme that I'm seeing throughout some of the books that I really love. This one follows Enchanted Jones, and she is an up and coming, struggling artist who really wants to get her name out there. She's a little bit younger, like a teenager, but she is a music artist and she absolutely loves and adores music. And then she meets this older man who's a producer and sees him as kind of like her ticket to fame and popularity. But a lot of darker things come with this man. And then one night she also wakes up with blood on her hands. There's a dead body and she does not remember anything that happened. This one is so heartbreaking, and it truly just made me feel so much for this young girl who was obviously taken advantage of, and it was just so hard and difficult to read. But it's also a great, amazing read that I think a lot of people should read because this is a reality for a lot of girls in the industry and the reality for a lot of Black girls, not just within the industry but all over. This is the reality for a lot of young Black girls, is being groomed by older men. So I just loved the commentary in this one. I thought it was so well done, and again, it's great for young adult readers who need to be introduced to the harder topics of life, but also great for people who are a little bit older who are still interested in reading about these themes. The last kind of more like drama that I have that's not necessarily a thriller is Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry. This one is so good. It's very dark and disturbing as well, but it's really phenomenal. So we're following this mother, and she is the mom of Noah. Noah is a kind of golden boy of this area, and he is a really prolific swimmer for being so young, and he teaches younger children swim classes. And he admits to his mom one day, his parents, that he has molested 2 of the young girls at his swim classes. And he does not want to be a pedophile. He does not want to do these things, but he cannot control himself and he has these urges, and that's just kind of who he is. So obviously he gets sent to like a juvenile sexual rehabilitation center, but he is eventually released. And his dad does not want him to come home because he has a younger sister. So him and his mom end up getting an apartment together, and she cares for him. She really, really loves her son, and you could tell that. And he does not want to be a pedophile. He does not want to do these things, but he cannot control that he's a pedophile. Even after going through all of the stuff that the sexual rehabilitation center tried to do for him, none of it worked. And they are really struggling with the fact that this is kind of just who he is. And some really hard, difficult things come up in the story. The end of this book, honestly, it felt like a tragic ending for sure. It was so heartbreaking. And this one made me question a lot of things of like, of course, pedophilia is bad. We all know this. Pedophilia is bad. But sometimes people really cannot control themselves and are actually mentally ill, and there's nothing that we can do to help them. And they don't want to be the way that they are, but they are just that way. So reading about that and trying to reconcile with that within myself was really interesting. And this one evoked a lot of really strong emotions in me and a lot of really deep thinking. Next up is another really super twisty thriller that had me gagged and gooped, and that is The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. I've also read the sequel to this one, which is not on this list. I gave that one 4 stars, but it is also pretty decent. I enjoyed it, and the end twist was really crazy, just like this book. This one is absolutely insane, like twist upon twist upon twist upon twist. If you want a really fun time that you're going to read in one day, this is going to be it. This one follows Sarah Morgan, and she is a very successful, like 30-something-year-old defense attorney, and her husband is kind of a struggling writer, and they have a second house, and he ends up going there with his mistress and has an affair on his wife. But then he wakes up the next morning and his mistress is murdered. So obviously the police are like, bro, you did it, and they arrest him for it and everything like that. But he is very adamant about the fact that he did not murder this woman. And his wife, Sarah, even though she just found out about this affair and that he was cheating on her, she does not believe that her husband did this. So she decides that she's going to defend him in the court of law and actually figure out what happened and make sure that her husband does not get convicted of this murder. This book is absolutely insane. It's absolutely crazy. As I said, twist upon twist. Like throughout this entire book, there's constant twists. And I really like that because it kept me interested. It kept me entertained. It kept me on the edge of my seat. It was so good, so fun. And it really, truly got me out of a reading slump like no other. And I just think it was so great. Like it's not the best, most literary thriller. Like some of these, like Saving Noah is objectively like a better book than this book, you know? But this one was just so fun. Like I have to put it on here. We started this list with one of the first thrillers that I read that really got me into thrillers, and we're ending it off with another one of those, and that is No Exit by Taylor Adams. I love this thriller so much, and it truly got me into thrillers, just like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This is one of the most popular thrillers on BookTube, a BookTube darling, you might say. This one follows Darby, and she is a college student who is on the way home for like winter break or something like that to see her dying mother. When she is driving home, it is literally blizzarding so bad she has to pull over at like a rest stop. And there's a couple other people there, I want to say like 4 or 5, and they are all stuck there. There's no cell reception because of the storm, and they have nowhere to go because literally they cannot drive on the roads because the snow is so thick and they cannot see. And so she goes out to try and call her mom and be like, hey, like I'm stuck at this rest stop, whatever, whatever. And while she's out there, she doesn't contact her mom, by the way, because there's no cell reception. But while she's out there, she's like looking and being nosy in people's cars, and she ends up seeing a little girl trapped in a cage in the back of someone's van. And she knows that this girl obviously was like kidnapped or something like that, or is being treated horribly at the very least. And so she goes back to this rest stop and is trying to figure out whose car this is, who kidnapped this little girl, and why. And she obviously wants to protect her and keep her from harm's way, but she cannot contact the police. She cannot go anywhere. She's really trapped and isolated in this situation, and she doesn't know what to do with this information because she cannot do anything at the current moment. This one, again, is so good. It's so fast-paced, truly. Like, it's breakneck speed. Again, this is one that you could definitely finish in one day, and it was just so entertaining and so just fun. It was so fun. So those are all my favorite thrillers. Let me know down below what your favorite thrillers are, because I would really, really like to find some more really good thrillers, because as I said, the past few years, the thrillers that I've read have not been hitting. So if you have some really good thriller recommendations, especially like comp titles for these, please let me know down below, because I would love to read them and pick them up. And while you're down there, you can also leave me the little knife emoji to let me know that you made it to the end, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye, everybody!
I'm writing rhymes in the kitchen, soaking the moments we live in. Yeah, you got the nerve to be on me.